Hello and welcome to not episode 78. It's a brand new podcast, the Bald Bearded Wonder Men. Wonder Man number one is James Revell. You may remember James joined me on episode 16 and we're now episode 78. That was 5 days away from 2 years ago. For those of you that don't know James, and I'm sure that's a minority of people that are listening because he's a legend in our industry, subject matter expert on contact centers, director of international contact centers at Air France, and way before the pandemic, award winner for what we now call a hybrid, right? But James, thanks very much for coming back on. In 2 years, can you believe it?
I know, it hardly seems possible. And I think we did it in a very nice office on the South Bank, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was really nice, over coffees, and things have changed a little bit.
There was only a couple more after that were face to face, to be honest, and then it's all been remote. But for everyone else listening, we've stayed in regular touch since then, haven't we? Doing these little Zooms. You've got a podcast. What's that called for people that want to listen?
Oh, thank you very much. Notes on nothing. It's got nothing to do with contact centres. I disassociate Air France KLM with it completely, just to save my job. But it was just something that I started to do in lockdown to scratch an itch that I've had for some time. So just a selection of essays, spoken essays, which, to be honest with you, doesn't sound very good as I'm plugging it.
I like it. And of course, soon to come, the Bald Bearded Wonder Men that we've self-christened ourselves. I'm letting the side down today for those of you that are watching on YouTube because I'm wearing a baseball cap, but that's because I've got I'm growing a third head spot in the middle of my forehead and I'm still vain. And as you said, this is the longest puberty.
That's right.
In history, right? One day I'll be mature.
Absolutely. But I've got to say that I've got microphone envy because that.
Oh, what? Because of this?
That's you've set up your own radio station there basically at home, which is great.
Yeah.
My microphone is a puny number, which I was very proud of at the time when I purchased it, and it came and it was delivered. But that is amazing. I like it.
It's another Amazon special. This is on a shoestring. This podcast, as many people like to point out. So how do you? I'm really interested in, like I said in the introduction, you and your team won awards when the model that you had, certainly the hybrid model, you knew that vocab. No one else really used it. Now everyone's using it. How have you sort of viewed the change in our industry over these 2 years due to the pandemic?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's I'm not wanting to sound too cliche, but it has been a hell of a journey. It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride because I think when that hit, I think we were very fortunate, in inverted commas, because we had the model up and running, and with the exception of a few people who were still 100% office based, who we managed to get out and working remotely pretty quickly. Everyone else was working from home on a hybrid model, coming into work, into the office rather, twice a month. And then suddenly we had to kind of rush towards the end to try to get those extra people to go and work from home. And the last person to be dragged kicking and screaming from the office was myself, because I've been a great promoter of it, but I never wanted it for myself. And here I am, 18 months later, still working from home and actually enjoying it. And I've fully embraced it. And the amount of time that I think, from a personal perspective, been able to capture has been really nice. So I think that's opened that for me personally. So I'm actually practicing what I've been preaching for the last few years. It has been at the time as well, and we were solicited a little bit from companies and other contact centers who were looking at trying to make that switch really quickly. And I was absolutely astounded and really impressed. It took us ages to do what we did. but then the majority of companies actually turning around and achieving it within a really short period of time to ensure that they're protecting their colleagues and also continuing to offer great customer service. It was really impressive. I can only imagine that there's some IT teams that were flat out for a period of 2 or 3 weeks trying to get that up and running. So it was really amazing. And having done some of the judging for the UK and now going into the European Contact Center Awards, it's been really nice to see the level of innovation and enthusiasm and passion still coming out from a crisis perspective from contact centers. And I think even though that there was a lull in a lot of business, I believe, and I suppose it's industry dependent, but certainly for aviation, well, there was nothing flying, but we were still extremely busy from a contact center perspective and still are today. And I assume that was the same for many other contact centers. So having people, constantly engaging with the customers at a very difficult time, I'm sure, for them professionally and personally, and providing high levels, adapting to lots of change, providing high levels of innovation. It's been really impressive to see just how well contact centers have fared through this difficult time. I'm sure that a lot have come under a lot of pressure and a little bit of stick as well, because they can't offer the same service levels as previous because of difficult circumstances. But notwithstanding, I think it's been an absolutely great effort. It just shows how important it is to have a fully functioning contact center up and running. If you're there to provide continuity of service, is absolutely vital. And I think sorry,
go on.
I was going to say, and I think that because it's been so difficult for people, for customers to know what is happening regarding their products and services that they are having, just to know, for example, from a travel perspective, if they can still travel to these locations, can they have a refund? What's the legislation in place now? They've wanted to engage through the voice channels predominantly, I think, to try and get answers. And I think that has been quite a social phenomenon throughout this time as well. That obviously we're moving towards another hybrid model or a cyborg model where you've got obviously the human and also automation, but then there's an increased demand for the human voice during such a crisis, because people want that reassurance, which I think only customer service professionals within contact centers can provide during those difficult times.
The word there that really resonates with me is reassurance, because actually originally with our honeymoon, we were going to be going abroad, and the airline and the holiday firm were great from emails. The websites were good with web chat, but I do remember kind of setting aside some time and going, doesn't matter how long I have to queue, I want to speak to someone. And that word that you said then, reassurance, was the reason why. And it's interesting, isn't it? I guess it's a conundrum for people that are sort of looking at our contact centers and trying to shift the percentage away from voice to other channels without nailing maybe. And I guess the question is, can you ever get the same level of reassurance? I don't know. I didn't really sort of spend too much time thinking about why even though I had some confirmation of what was happening next, I still wanted to speak to someone. Why is that? It's interesting.
Yes, it is. And I think it depends on, what is it that we want to do? Is it purely transactional? And do we feel confident enough to make that fairly anonymous and impersonal? Or is it something which really is more than a transaction? It is emotional and means a lot to us, and so much so that we want that, that voice there, as you say, to reassure us, and something that we can refer to psychologically afterwards, emotionally, to say it's okay. Someone has told me that this is what's going to happen. So, and I think it's been very difficult. If I take travel as an example, constantly changing legislation, local rules and regulations globally meant that it was extremely important that knowledge management databases were up to date very quickly, very efficiently. So it's those people behind the scenes feeding those databases, which has been absolutely key. Firstly, to giving the right information to ensure that it's easy for people to find, which then brings down the amount of time needed to find these and improves accessibility. So it's a huge team effort to ensure that it's possible for people to find that reassurance. It's not only having the voice, but it's having the right answer behind it as well. I'm feeling confident that you do have the right answer. So it was very challenging, and I think that perhaps a lot of other industries and contact centers will find that they had similar experiences trying to reassure their customer base that there is a certain amount of business as usual and a team that is available there to be the guardians of that.
That's a really good point, because it makes me think about what you're saying there is fast flowing, accurate communication of the right information to frontline team members, housed in knowledge-based knowledge systems. Let's be honest, I don't know, we actually, our relationship started, didn't it, through judging and awards, and I'm sure you have something similar on some on-site visits years ago now. Whenever we came to look at knowledge bases, people would be like, you could see them navigating tentatively because they can't quite remember how to get there, and then when they open it up, there's some news there from 1997, but I imagine this whole pandemic has made people reassess and go, look, this needs to be up to date and accurate,
Absolutely, indeed. And I think it's not really from a customer experience, it's from a colleague experience. If you are that frontline person that is providing effectively, reassurance and maybe some emotional support, and it was emotional, that if you're constantly faced with that stress, being the representative of your company, that is obviously going to weigh heavily on you if you can't rely on the information that's given, or you feeling you can't completely satisfy what the person you're speaking to wants you to deliver. So it's not only from a customer satisfaction perspective, from a colleague perspective as well, to ensure that that they're capable, they've got the tools and the information to be able to do their job to the best of their capabilities.
Do you think then that contact centers, this has kind of reminded maybe people that aren't directly involved, but they're in companies and maybe senior positions that have contact centers, that it's made contact centers more relevant or less or the same?
Absolutely more. And I think there's been a groundswell over the past 10 years or so, where I think that there has been a recognition that you do need to work in partnership with the contact centers to deliver excellent customer service, and to it's the reputation, the value of contact centers within the business has gone up significantly, and I think this has done nothing but cement that place within the company. And regardless, decisions cannot be made without thinking about how that is going to hello.
Yeah, I'm still.
Oh,
we still have you, James.
And why I've disappeared?
You haven't. You're very much here still.
Am I?
Yeah, this is an existential crisis, everybody.
Sorry. Sorry, I forgot.
Or is this all a dream?
I don't know. Well, the new Matrix film's coming out soon, so
I know. I can't wait for that. Can't wait for that.
So yeah, without shadow of a doubt, I think that it's cemented the place for contact centers within any organization.
I wonder if do you think there's going to be another iteration of the name? So we've gone call, contact. I was talking to Helen, who I work with, and we said network, center, customer. This. I don't know if they're don't get me wrong, the general public is still call center, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's I don't think that's going to be very hard to break that one.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if this is going to lead to, because we're not in centres anymore. Do you think? What do you think?
Oh goodness me! Well, a former colleague of mine, one of former bosses, he was very keen on pushing the term engagement platform. Never really took off, but I will plug it on his behalf here today.
Yeah, I like the engagement part.
Yeah,
certainly.
the engagement part, I think, is, and I think hub is a word that is very pertinent as well, because it is a hub. It does connect the customer to the rest of the business, and there's a positive flow of information throughout those hubs. So I think engagement hub. Shall we push
like
that?
it? Yeah, let's do it. Let's get some t-shirts made. We can get sandwich boards and go back in London again, mate.
I mean, is that our intellectual property now? I mean, effectively,
we own it. Well, the moment we've made it public, we don't own it, I think, but we can be the creators.
Okay, all right.
Then. If you look in Wikipedia, maybe it will say our names and pictures.
Maybe. Okay.
Engagement hub, everybody. You heard it here first. What are you seeing in terms of? So we still got contact centers, even if people are some are in, some are spread out. What are you seeing in desire to bring people back, and what does that mean? It seems to me that there's more onus on canvassing everyone's views, certainly across the industry. But what are your views on that?
Yeah, indeed. And I speaking to friends across different industries, and I can see that different companies, not necessarily contact centers, have got very different views on what the best way forward. But I think general consensus is hybrid, a little bit of both, and indeed there is canvassing of people's opinion. I mean, the door has been open wide now. It is possible. When we were speaking before regarding home working, remote working, whatever you want to call it, there was a lot of skepticism, maybe a lack of trust as to whether this could happen, that if people were going to be as efficient, etc., etc. And I think all those myths have been disproved now, and there is an acceptance that it is a viable way of working. It's whether it's a viable long-term model. So I think it really depends what companies' motives are for wanting people to come back in the office. And I think one thing that I always said previously, prior to going into lockdown, is that it was important within a contact center, where that contact amongst colleagues, that sharing of information, walking into a contact center, it's a very dynamic environment. And this really, home working does pull at the fabric of that. And that's why we opted for a hybrid model before, and asking people to come back to engage with us in the office twice a month, which wasn't very much. But the problem that we had, and I think something that tripped us up, is that we did that, say, oh, you've got to come back twice a month. But then there was nothing for people to engage with, anything different on those 2 days than any other day. So, which then raised the question from our colleagues, well, why are you asking me to come in?
Yeah, why are we doing this?
Yeah, why are we doing this? So I think we all had to be very clear if we're asking people to come back into the office. Why are we asking them to come back? And I think there's some very good, engaging with the business, the culture, the values, the atmosphere, the sense of team, and even from a well-being perspective, actually conversing face to face with colleagues, that is very important. But then we have to oil those wheels to actually make that come alive. So we really have to do something to ensure that when people come in, they feel that they are actually doing those things that we want from that. And it's not just left to happen organically, because it won't necessarily do that. And then I think people will become disgruntled with that because they feel it's not necessary. We have to live now, I think, because the box has been open. We have to live with that, with this model that we've got, but it's just making it work. So we have to ensure that there are innovative ways of achieving what we want to achieve by people being in the office when they're there, but also ensuring that those things exist when they're at home as well. New communication methods, ensuring that there's regular, team meetings, connecting with your colleagues on a regular basis, making values, company values come alive, making sure that there's a real palpable feeling of what the company and the values is and are, so that we can live those on a day-to-day basis remotely. Coming into the office does nothing but underline that, emphasize that, and give it a little bit more of a belonging. We have to work with it. I think speaking to someone in the recruitment industry not so long ago, and he was saying to me, well, people aren't asking about salary anymore. They're asking about whether there are remote working possibilities. So this is now a social phenomenon, and we have to learn to live with it and to work with it. And we have to. Part of the reason that we did this before in the UK office, the contact centre for Everard's KLM, was because there were challenges in attracting the multilingual customer service professionals and ensuring that we had that constant flow of people coming in and wanting to work with the company and offering great customer service. Those challenges are even greater now.
Yeah.
Multilingual, because European languages, because of Brexit, and also as well because the job market, the economy is picking up again. There are perhaps more opportunities than there are, people to fill them. So we have to be even more competitive in terms of the offering for people to want to join our companies. So we really do have to think in a very innovative way to ensure that we can live with home working, remote working, and make that part of the fabric of what we're doing without destroying what are the inherent values of a contact center.
I think it's really astute, mate. I mean, talking from where my day job is, BPA quality, similar sort of challenges. It's a multilingual operation. So we had such a great atmosphere in the contact center. That everyone the same way, quickly within weeks dissipated to home. One of the things that hearing you talk then that's made me think about is, without wanting to get all like crystals but you don't have to be that way inclined to recognize. You and I both know you can go into a contact center and it has an energy. There's different energies. There's a different atmosphere. I'm talking pre-pandemic, whether it was on visits or just with work. I just wonder, like we've been doing some things that you made a really good point about having to be innovative and do other things to recreate that, because that vibe, that energy, that is what the company values are. It's not just the words that are written down. It's the atmosphere that when you're in and it's a bit buzzy, or it's helpful, or it's calm but confident. There's all these different vibes that you can sense when you go into any contact center. As more and more people have been recruited and their experience has only been working from home and remote interaction with their team members, I wonder if those things are diluted. I mean, we saw we often every year do like an outdoor charity-based challenge. This time it was doing 100 kilometers in 2 days, Race to the Stones. The take up to that was more than ever before. So we had a team of like 50, I think. And it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. People were excited just to come together as a group. We're all from BPA. It was brilliant. And I wonder if it's having to do more of those types of things to ensure that you're not just it's not all just about the actual work, is it? It's not all just about the job. It is about the interactions we have with the people that we work with in our tribe. And this tribe happens to be one where we work. When you're in the same building, those kind of, you see someone who might work in a completely other department, but you've shared a joke 6 months ago. And when you walk past each other in the corridor, that makes you feel good, doesn't it? Because
it does,
she's funny. Do you know what I mean? There's that's gone now. You don't get the same response from the cats, so
However, that's been another side effect of this as well. I think my cat has become famous throughout the whole company, just jumping up on the table in the most inopportune moments. No respecter of protocols, meeting protocols
Well, cats
whatsoever.
aren't ever going to be, are they?
No, never, never.
We've got three. And since working from home, we've discovered that actually it's like the cat crack den of this estate. You know, the number of cats that are not ours that come round, I'm sure it's
Yeah,
probably more before we were working from home.
yeah.
They're really annoyed with us.
I know, this is it indeed.
It's like, yeah, come round, mum and dad are out.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But it's interesting. It is interesting because I totally agree with you. Those kind of events that you were talking about to try and pull, and you're right. It is tribal sense of belonging. We're all doing the same thing. You know, we can share. You know, when things go wrong, when it's not, we can share them, and also when things go well. I think that is what I'm seeing from the colleagues that I've worked with, but also throughout the awards and on what has been presented, is there are lots of innovative ways where they try to capture a little bit more of that, to try to share things a little bit more from a virtual perspective. And in a way, it does more than you can do in the office, because you are going into people's homes, there is a sense of increased intimacy. You do see the cat, you do see what's going on, or everything that can go wrong in the background, which you didn't, you know, it happens. So it does make things very human from a certain perspective. And I think from a short to medium term, that works really well and is sustainable. I think the real challenge for us from a contact center perspective is to see how that translates in the long term, because it does require a lot of energy to, you know, not only do the business, but also to ensure that there is engagement and ensuring that your teams are engaging in some sort of fashion to try to keep that camaraderie together. Is that sustainable in the long term? You know, really does need a seismic shift in terms of what we require from our leaders within the contact center from a day-to-day basis. We noticed that already from remote working, that we forgot. We spent so much time thinking about people in the front line and how it was going to impact them, but we forgot about line managers and the leaders. And if anything, they are more key to the success of this, because their whole routine has been disrupted. Having half a team who are in an office elsewhere, you know, how do you bring those people together and make them work as a cohesive business unit, as a cohesive team? It's extremely challenging. I don't think there are any, you know, silver bullets to ensure, you know, what is the magical solution to all that. There isn't, but there's it's a whole array of different things that we will have to do. Require a lot of energy, but our leaders' time will be taking up a large part of it in trying to achieve that. And that is, I think, a huge challenge for us over the next months and probably years.
Yeah, it's another good point. Hats off to the team leaders out there. I don't know how they've done it. I don't know how our guys have done it. I don't know how team leaders in the industry have done it. Because certainly personally, if I think about that team that I had of 20 people at one point, there were 20 in the team. It leveled out at about 15, but nonetheless, that's still sometimes the extent of an interaction with one of the people in the team would be making eye contact in the morning huddle, maybe throughout the day as you're managing by wandering around, you catch something and go, that sounded great. How did that go? You're okay? How's things going? Maybe a 30-second interaction. Now, I would feel like I was hamstrung. You know, I'd feel like I was trying to do my job a bit shackled, because that was a lot of the thing I think that made me a good team leader, was the kind of social butterfly. You're just wandering around, just checking in. How's everyone doing? What do they need? That sounded good. When have we got coaching? Reminding, you know, all of those things. You have to be far more organized. If you think about doing that remotely, even just catching up with everyone probably takes all of the day if you're going to do it individually.
No, absolutely. Indeed. And there's a far more pastoral care needed as well when people are home. It's very difficult, and we ask our leaders what from a well-being perspective, which remains, I think, more pertinent than ever as we become more isolated. We ask our team leaders as well to try to gauge how people are in terms of their mental well-being.
Yeah.
And how, it's difficult enough to do on a one-to-one basis, but in person. But trying to do that, virtually is a real challenge. And that's another thing that I think that we really do have to look at closely as we move forward, just to see what are the best ways to do that. And getting people to come back into the office, I think it is also good for. Never thought that going into the office is good for mental well-being, but it is. That interaction. I've missed it. I've missed it a lot from my old team, and moving into a new. I've not met my new teams yet in South Africa and China and Cairo. I've not seen them yet. They don't. All they know is that they got this bald guy with a beard who now is in charge. So it would be nice to be able to go out and actually meet people and try to engage with them and develop those relationships which were possible before a previous job because of face-to-face interactions.
Well, if you need a double to maybe go and visit two places at once,
absolutely.
As long as I just got to, shake hands and nod and
say, absolutely. that's all I've done for the last 23 years.
No, I'm just saying, my role would be that kind of more ceremonial. My version of you. But I'm like you. I think it's, and again, we spend a lot of time talking to all of our peers and people like that in the industry. There's no surprise. There's something in the fact that everyone is all very excited when they go to do a face-to-face event. And more often than not, there's a picture on LinkedIn saying really excited to meet the team or to go to a city centre or to go to attend a live event. And there's something in that, I think, isn't it? We need that kind of we need that interaction more than just this virtual world.
And you say about events, but on a couple of events I've been asked to speak at as a panel, it's also having a little bit of feedback from the audience because you've got nothing. You are saying it's just silence. And maybe if that were in front of a live audience, it would have been the same. But it would be nice to know one way or the other.
Yeah, very true. Because you kind of say, I'll take silence as acceptance, but if it's, and I think there are some, I've read so much about this around, it's not natural for us to see ourselves as well. So we're, that has an impact. And I think there's this thing about recognizing, I think as a customer, not just because we're from the industry, but recognizing that the people you're talking to in contact centers are also going through the same event, have also had impacts personally as well. I think we're all at a stage now where we know someone, or there has been an impact of COVID within your circle of friends and family. So this kind of shared event, whilst also still having to pitch up and deliver customer service, shouldn't be overlooked. It's been a challenge for everyone, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, indeed. It can't be underestimated. I think back, I think now we're slightly more at ease with it as we've had time to adapt and get used to it. But if you go back to April, May of last year, it was quite scary and really was at the top of the agenda to ensure that we could accompany colleagues and friends through these experiences, because they were isolated and having to deal with these things away from colleagues was quite a challenge for people.
You touched on something earlier. You mentioned well-being, and I just wonder if seismic events like this actually will lead us to a positive place, because people have been forced to consider areas that maybe they didn't need to before because they were isolated, whereas now this encompasses everyone. And well-being, I think, is one of those, because I know from our HR teams have had to be so adaptable, flexible about what constitutes well-being, where their responsibilities start and end. That kind of, so that there's this greater focus on well-being, I think, will have positive benefits for a long time to come, that we've all had to embrace it. There's some of us that have done it from the word go anyway, but others that have gone, that they understand it's something that is really, really important.
Absolutely, yeah, indeed. There was, I think, a groundswell for the making sure that well-being of colleagues was really at the forefront of our plans prior to this. But this has really, I think, ensured that we do embrace that. It's speeded up the whole process. So, which is, a good thing if we can take any positives out of it. And I think there are positives that throughout this as well. I've seen it, witnessed it. There's obviously a lot of tragedy as well, but there has been, I think, some things that we have been extremely positive. And that's why, going back to the remote working as well, it has happened. It's part of a change, not only from a company perspective, but societal changes, and we do have to work with it. I think we just can't reverse the clocks and say it didn't happen. We have to get on as things were before. We have to try to ensure that we do make it work, and those are going to be the challenges. But well-being is there as well, just to ensure that isn't lost as well. Once the whole COVID thing dies down, there are issues about mental well-being not related to COVID that are obviously just as present as they were prior to the pandemic. So that can't fall off the radar either. So we do have to ensure that we carry on and keep that momentum going.
Very true. You've led award-winning teams, and like I said, our relationship we got to know each other through the awards. We're kind of coming to that time of the year when the awards are given out, and judging is taking place for the European awards. As a seasoned judge yourself, what is it what impresses you? What do you look for? What are the kind of things that make you sit up and go, "Oh, this is good"? Because they're long days, aren't they?
They are long days. But you know what they do? At the beginning of the day, you think, wow, goodness me, this can be, 6-8 hours solid of information. And you do come out of it quite energized at the end of it.
Yeah.
Because, and what I like is it's the very authentic experience. And I don't like when there's perhaps the management all over the place and it's death by PowerPoint. Unfortunately, because of the nature of it being virtual, then there is a PowerPoint, but where you've got different members of the team all there, share, and they come and they are full of passion and they tell their story. And you can say, okay, this is where you started, this is where you got to, and these people are really fully engaged with that, totally passionate about what they're doing. They absolutely love it. And that's great. And to hear that 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, that is really good, because it does put a lot of faith in, and also I can pinch a lot of ideas as well. So I've got the monopoly on wisdom.
Yeah, no, it's great, isn't it? It's to see people. I couldn't agree more in that authenticity that you're just talking about their experiences, warts and all. It's great. It's great, isn't it?
Indeed. And there's no, and I do quite like you have warts and all. Absolutely, what went wrong? It's this. It does go wrong. There's no hiding it. It does go wrong, and we have to adapt accordingly as well. And I think that's good to hear from that as well. And this year, I was really heartened by the last year. A lot of it was about adapting to COVID, and it was really, there was a lot of it was centered on moving to home working, which was great. This year was more about back to business as usual, in inverted commas, obviously with COVID in the background, and but it was really focused on the important things, and seeing everything from from customer, colleague experience, well-being, again, we'll talk about it again. That was high on people's agenda. Diversity, inclusion, that was high on people's agenda as well. So it was really nice just to see these authentic stories and a really good holistic approach to running centres. And I think that's why I love contact centres so much, is that everything is in the mix. There as well. It's a real microcosm of the wider business, and what makes it so dynamic. And coming back to what we were saying earlier, that's the challenge, is making it stay like that with a hybrid working model, which can pull at the fabric of that. That I think now is what we have to think of, and how we overcome that particular challenge.
That's a lovely summary to draw this episode to a close, James. Thanks very much. Let's make sure that we can do our next one face to face.
In
again,
in 2 years' time, minus 5
no,
days.
it can't be that long, surely.
No, surely not. No, absolutely.
The world needs the bearded, bald Wonder Men together, fighting crime.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I'm hoping that by the time we do it, they've found a cure for baldness by then as well. I know there's other things higher on the medical priority at the moment, but
if the world scientists can come together for COVID, I think they do need to come together for. I don't know. Would you take it now though?
No, do you know what?
Want to go back to a full head of hair?
No, I never suited hair.
Yeah.
Never suited it.
I don't know. It would. You'd have to be constantly saying why your hair's suddenly grown back, wouldn't you?
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
We've just got to. We've embraced it a long time ago. I mean.
Yeah. Indeed.
We rock it. Let's own it. Come on.
Yeah. And anyway, I mean, for me, I've still got some around here. I'd say it's a lifestyle choice.
Yeah. It definitely
upon
is.
Me.
James Revell, contact center and bald bearded Superman. Thank you very much for coming on again.
Thanks very much, Martin. Always a pleasure. Thank you.